Okay, guys, I just renewed Netflix and getting ready to watch the comeback, the 2004 Boston Red Sox, down 3-0 to the Yankees. They defeated New York 3 straight after that. Tuesday night, we saw the greatest political comeback in U.S. history as Donald J. Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. Now, stay with me. I'm going to kind of segue this into some sports, but before we get into the sports and all these comebacks, it's just amazing what we have seen leading up to this election. The back and forth between the Democrats, the Republicans, and then you listen to all the pollsters. It was the feeling was it was probably going to go the other way, but
Right.
man, Trump trounced her. That's all you can say.
Seems like, all the stuff leading up was, it seemed like the Democrats might have, Kamala might have won that election, but when it comes down to it, it is all just projections and like polls and stuff like that, and you have no idea how people are going to vote. And it was a landslide. I mean, it was pretty crazy. But I'm curious where you're going to take this comeback story thing. One thing we were talking at work. So you said 47th president because obviously he was 45.
Mm-hmm.
Should he just be like it's kind of weird because how is he the 45th and 47th? It's the same person, So like for example, when Obama won, he wasn't 44 and 45. He was just the 44th president because he won 2 terms. So it's just, I'm not saying anything bad against, Trump. I'm just saying that's kind of a funny way to look at it.
Well, it's because there's a term in between. That's the only reason.
I mean, I get that, but it's like the same guy. Like he's not 2 different guys. He's the 45th and 47th. Yeah, I know. It's just a funny way to think of it. But
it is strange.
Yes, anyway, it was pretty crazy to watch it play out. That's for sure.
Well, get your T-shirt. 45 and 47. Right. No, but what I was leading into this on the comeback, because it really is. It's unbelievable. I mean, the guy had 2 assassination attempts, indicted. We know all the backstory. What a comeback. What a comeback. And, my whole thing on the sports related thing is the 2004 Boston Red Sox. Was that the greatest comeback of all time? There's a handful, like just for example, Alex Smith. That might be the comeback of all time with that devastated leg injury. That's one of them. I mean, obviously the Patriots coming back from 28-3 to win a Super Bowl. That's a large comeback. And I kind of gave you guys a preview. Do you have any that just jump out at you?
I mean, when you messaged, I wasn't sure exactly where this was going to go. I figured this was maybe the route. I thought about that Super Bowl. There's that the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs in the 90s. They were down to the Houston Oilers. They were down like 38 points or 35 points, whatever it was.
32, and they ended up winning 41-38. Yeah.
Right. Came back and won. That one popped into my mind, but I didn't know you were going to mention the Red Sox. That was the main one I thought of. The Red Sox being down 0-3. That's the famous one.
And that's a hot topic now that it's a Netflix documentary. I haven't seen it yet. I'm getting ready to tee it up here within the next couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the Red Sox team, it was awesome. I agree. And I love the 30 for 30 they did back in the 4 days in October. That almost reminds me of the OJ stuff. How many retellings, tellings do we need of this damn story? It's a great story. How about a 3-1 LeBron Cleveland Cavaliers documentary?
That's a good one. I mean, that's a good one.
The Red Sox are awesome, and Big Papi, like that is like probably the coolest baseball team there's ever been, and what they did was awesome. I mean, Kurt Schilling, the Sox. I'm not disregarding what they did, but also, I mean, my God, there's a lot of good sports stories out there. Like you're talking about Alex Smith, like individual stories. Like of all the stories, do we need 15 million docs on this? Is where I'm at.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a pretty big one too because it had been so long since the Red Sox had won a World Series. Sure. Obviously, the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry coming back from 2003 had never been done.
Yeah.
So pretty big deal. And
I'm not saying it's not a big deal. I sound like an idiot.
But you know how it goes too. You're a hater of the Fab Five. There's plenty of documentaries about the Fab Five. There's a sports moment that big, they're gonna keep retelling that story over and over.
It's crazy, man. Believe me, I actually did watch it, and it is very good. But it is also like, holy cow! So like you're talking about the Fab Five. You know what the best piece of literature or video ever was Mitch Albom's original book.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
The more and the ESPN original doc was the best. Yeah, more and more, the further and further we get from that, the worse and worse it gets, man. It's that first big, and think about it, like when they got Chris Webber didn't do it, right? Am I remembering the doc?
He didn't do it. Yeah.
But they got everybody else, and that's what made it special. Is it the first time we're seeing all these guys sit down and talk about an interview or talk about what happened. And I always thought that was cool. And I think we've gotten that with the 04 Red Sox, but granted, Netflix will take a payday any way they can get it, and people still give a shit about that story in that team, especially because of what you said, Matt. It's Boston, and and the whole 100 years of backstory that went into it.
Yeah, well, you do make a good point though. There was a couple really good ones prior to the Netflix one, and it's about money. But if it's well done, I'll watch it, especially if they have new takes, different things.
I'm sorry, and also the timing strikes me as weird.
Yeah.
Once we cross into football season, and we've talked about it on previous pods with the World Series, and it's like, man, what a great World Series with the two teams that are matched up. It felt like it was just swept under the rug almost because it's of where it fell on the calendar. That's a topic for another day, but
maybe they were hoping that the World Series, went a little longer, or the playoffs for the MLB went a little longer.
Probably.
And they were going to release it during the World Series. Dave Roberts obviously manages the Dodgers, and he was on that Red Sox team. So maybe they were planning some sort of connection there. But yeah, you can't drop stuff like that just in the heart of football season. I mean,
the best time for that is, and I think Untold, when they drop their football documentaries, they always drop it like the Connor Stallions, for example. It's like a week before the season. When you're at a fever pitch for anything football, anything baseball, by the end of the baseball season, you're ready for the next sport.
Now, there was a comeback story. You probably go along with this, Jared, being the golfing guy you are. How about the 2019 Masters with Tiger?
You can't beat that, can you? I don't know how
that's
you
an individual one. Yep.
I mean, everything that went into it. The fact that since then, it seems like Tiger's really pretty much been on the straight and narrow. He's got the good thing going with his son. It seems like there's only been positive Tiger press really in the last 6-7 years. So that one was the best, man, and it kind of spoiled us really with how magical that was.
Yeah,
and that felt like, I mean, we all love Tiger Woods and grew up. I guess Ted, you didn't grow up, but you watched when he was in the prime of his career.
Watched all of it.
Right, watched all of it. I mean, we've talked about that a lot on this podcast. But it does feel like all the personal stuff that he went through, all the injuries that he went through. If he wouldn't have got one more major, and then of course it's at the Masters, that's like his major, it would have felt like, like it's not a complete story, because he's come back to play, but he's clearly not the same player that he used to be. He got that one major. We got to witness one more Tiger comeback. Like that really was like, not like you said, Jared, now he can just play with his son. He can play in these majors here and there and, whatever. It's fun to talk about. But he got that one more Masters. That was like, cool. We're done with. We all still want to see Tiger win.
Storybook is closed. Yeah, you're exactly right. Storybook closed. It was perfect.
Yeah, that's definitely right up there at the very top. One other one here in the state, maybe no other podcast will talk about it. The 1975 Division II football national champion, Northern Michigan Wildcats, not winning a game the previous year, and then coming back and winning the national championship the next year. And that's a hell of a comeback story.
Yeah, how did that happen? Did they get a new coach? That really is mind-boggling.
It is. They did get a new coach. They just pulled it all together. Mariucci was another year older, and I watched him play college football. That dude could throw the ball, man. He was really good, especially at Division II. So
what you're saying is there's hope for Michigan next year?
Maybe.
Let's especially now with the transfer portal and all that stuff. So that D2, and we've talked about that a little bit, and we were maybe going to do a little more on that for a future podcast. So that Northern Michigan, was it the GLIAC back then, or was it completely with Ferris and Grand Valley, or was it a completely different?
It probably has a funny name like the Western Pine Conference or something that was like old school. That's how I like to imagine it.
Yeah, it wasn't the GLIAC, but you got a good question there that I don't have the answer to. But yeah,
I'm just curious if what teams they were even playing, because Grand Valley State used to just be like Grand Valley State College. It wasn't university until
Central Michigan
80s,
was.
I want to say Central
Michigan was Division II. They actually won the national championship, I think, a couple of years prior. And
so this is kind of so they beat in the first round of playoffs. They were at Boise State. So they beat Boise State, they beat Grand Valley State, Saginaw Valley was around, Eastern Michigan they played, Nebraska, Omaha they played, Youngstown State, Central Michigan, so Wisconsin, Whitewater. Kind of a fun little schedule.
Pretty good fun schedule.
And then they beat Western Kentucky. in the actual championship game in Sacramento. So
yeah, and the other tie-in to us, we went to Corunna. One of their starting offensive linemen, Randy Thayer from Corunna, Michigan, one of my good buddies and teammates at Corunna, was one of the standouts there and played on both teams, the winless team and the national champions. So pretty amazing.
That is cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it would be fun to. We've talked about maybe doing a deeper dive into that whole story. It would be fun to explore that a little bit.
Absolutely. I thought you had some story about you were hitchhiking up there. I know at Central you ended up hitchhiking, but weren't you gonna go to Northern to play football on that squad, or what was the story?
Well, I had a phone call from one of the coaches. I wasn't home. My mom took the call. I didn't call the coach back. Whatever.
That's right. That's what
it was. One of those deals.
Man, that's like Ted. Didn't you have the opportunity to interview Magic Johnson out in Seattle or something?
Oh yeah,
you didn't take it.
Story.
So that's like strike one was not going to Northern Michigan and being on a national championship football squad. Strike two was not interviewing Magic Johnson in Seattle.
Oh man, I will tell you, I'm not a depressed person.
I'm just kidding.
But I'm just going to tell you flat out, when that went down, I was flying high, and then all of a sudden the interview got canceled.
Right.
And I was in clinical depression for at least a week after that, man. It was gut wrenching for sure.
That'd be a big one to miss.
You probably had a lot more fun going to Central for a semester and having the time of your life probably than all 4 years than those football guys had in that snowy climate, man. So
you got that right. And I hung out with those guys at the North End bar a few times. Those offensive linemen up there, they were a different breed. I can just tell you that.
I mean, you have to be if you're going to school up there you got your snowshoes to get to class during those winter months and stuff.
That's right. They used to dig tunnels.
Yeah, but no, that was an interesting way to tie in the election there with the comeback. I don't know what you guys think. I know we don't dip our toes into politics too much, and I think that's fine. But we are recording the night after the election, so it's hard not to at least mention it. But we've talked about it before, Ted. You've talked about you don't know if you've ever seen a time where things are just so divided as they are right now. And I was thinking earlier, a tie-in, we talk mostly about sports. It seems like politics and like this election and everything now has such a sports feel to it. And I think one reason we love sports, one team wins, one team loses. One team gets a win, a notch in the win column. One team gets a loss in a notch in the loss column. Both teams move on. You can argue. You can, talk trash to your buddies. You can do all that. A win and a loss in sports. It's very concrete.
Right.
And it seems like people are treating the election and the results of this election like it's a sports contest where one side wins and one side loses. One side has the flags on their car and the flags in their front yard and the shirts and the hats and all that kind of stuff like they're a Michigan fan or an Ohio State fan. And I was just thinking, I understand, yes, literally one side won, one side lost, if you look at it that way. But we're all supposed to be winning, right? When it comes to an election and people getting into politics and public service positions, local elections and even all the way up to president and everything, they're supposed to be looking out for the greater good of the American citizens, right? No one should be losing. And I was just thinking, the way people are reacting to this is like when Ohio State beats Michigan and they're just talking trash to Michigan fans. And it's no, wait. I mean, certain people are upset because their candidate didn't win. But it shouldn't be that we want to bury the other side, and it just seems like we've moved in that direction where people they just dislike the other side so much. They want them to lose as if they're a rival fan of their football team or something like that. And it just seems like such a mess that hopefully things turn around because, I mean, Ted, you have kids that are older now you have grandkids now. And, you do start thinking of things that way. You think, man, I do still have my life to live, but you think about your kids, your young kids that, man, I hope they grow up and everything doesn't fall apart because you're thinking about their future. So, again, I know we don't get too deep into this kind of stuff, but it's just crazy to see how it all plays out. And hopefully things can simmer down, cooler heads can prevail and everyone can work together. I mean, because that's what it's all about. You hope that everyone can work together, figure some stuff out and let's get the trajectory going back up, for the country.
Well said, Matt. And again, we're not here to get into partisan politics, but we're all Americans. Like I say at the end of every podcast, be kind. Let's get along. Let's try to make this country better if we can. And I'm glad. I'm glad on the one hand that it didn't come down to, oh, this might be a rigged election. I mean, there's no doubt. There's no doubt we had a winner. He won the popular vote too, so take that off the table. So we don't have to worry about the whole electoral college thing. And let's move forward. Let's hope things turn out well, because there's they have all the power now. The Republicans have all the power, and they're going to be setting a lot of precedent on what happens in this country the next 4 years and beyond. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Congratulations to Donald Trump. We'll just got to say it.
Yeah,
45 and 47.
Yeah.
Here's what I've realized: if there's anything these last 2 months, the second I say anything political, I sound like an idiot, according to either half of the people on one side or half of the people the other way. So it's crazy how it seems like it is very divisive, and hopefully this is the end of it. Hopefully whatever happens from here on out, it's a positive step. We will see. I don't know. At some point, I just want to see some things get done. I've always said I'd never noticed really a difference no matter who's president. But again, I'm dumb. I've never paid attention to politics really, even until a little bit this election. One thing I thought was, this is my first time ever really watching the coverage. It is fascinating to see. I'm a map guy, and the electoral map, we were talking pre-pod, it was fascinating how it's like within a first state or two, they're looking at certain counties and deciding, like, basically projecting the entire election on how this one county percentage of people voted. And I can't get enough of maps. When I was a kid, that's what you flipped open in the social studies book. You looked at all the maps at the back of the book. So I thought it was kind of fascinating to watch, but also just a little bit depressing. Not necessarily who won or who lost, but just that people are like getting that angry about it. No matter what happened. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna, like, every word I say, I feel like I'm about to step in like a bear trap. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. And
I think that's kind of part of the problem, because you have to walk on eggshells just talking about this stuff. I was talking to a buddy at work, and Ted, you remember these times. My buddy at work was saying, one thing that social media and all this kind of stuff has brought on, everyone thinks they have a voice. Everyone wants to get their opinion out there. I mean, we're doing that right now. We have a podcast where we put our opinions out there. So, okay. But it used to be, Ted, you probably remember, where you didn't talk about politics. You didn't talk about religion. You didn't talk about some of these hot button topics in your house because of what you're talking about, Jared. You don't want to offend people, and you don't want to lose friends. You don't want to lose family just because you voice an opinion. And if you're being, disrespectful, and if you're being, offensive in the opinion, okay, that's different. But if you're just having a conversation like what we are right now, people should be able to do that. You should be able to have a civil conversation, maybe even have some disagreements, and not lose friendships and family and stuff like that just because you see things in a different way.
It is kind of funny. It's like there is nothing more riveting than a political debate with you and whoever, but it always turns like
you can almost sense. You can sense when it starts to...
Oh yeah. Politics and religion. They always say stay away from those discussions.
Alive is. It seemed like this election was the most like hyped, anticipated election. Hyped that's not even the right words, but people really seem to give a shit about it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is that fair to say in your lifetime this was the most like anticipated election there's really ever been?
I think it was that, and it was also the most volatile, I think, as well. I mean, it was just vicious, and we've had mudslinging forever, but I think the extent of it for this election cycle,
became all it was really.
Yeah, I know.
That was all it's about. How
both sides.
This other person is doing is negative, and that's why it's like, hopefully, I don't know. It seems like you guys understand this better than I would. It sounds like maybe it's lined where Trump can actually do some things.
Hopefully.
He seems, from what he said, as some decent intentions. I don't know. Some also, again, some negative intentions, depending on who you voted for. But we'll see where it goes. I'm not ready to cancel the country. Let's see what happens. And
absolutely.
We're positive.
We're all Americans.
We're all Americans. The big thing, and this is one area that I haven't paid as much attention as I probably should as an American, like you just said, Ted. People always say, like, on the local level, that's where that's where differences can really be made. And when you make those votes, really pay attention to those local people, because they can actually make changes. Like you said, Jared, you don't even notice sometimes, one way or the other with who's president, but those local people, they could really make changes in your schools, in the infrastructure of your county and stuff like that. So that's where you can maybe see some change. And, that's probably an area we've lived here in Charlotte for about 8 years now. Admittedly, I haven't paid as close attention as I probably should at the local politicians, but probably same with you, Jared. You're kind of moving around a lot, so it's probably kind of hard to who are you voting for? Are you still Shiawassee County voting?
Right.
That kind of thing. So
yeah, it's a weird time we live in, man.
It is.
It seems like it's simmered down. I'll be going into last night. I was like, what the hell is going to happen? No matter who won or lost, man, there might be some serious fallout.
Right.
Seems like there hasn't been, so that's good.
I'll say too, I know we're running long on this. We said we weren't going to, but we're running long.
Never fails.
One thing I don't think we talked about on the podcast. I know we did off the record, but so now President Trump, he did do the Joe Rogan podcast.
Right.
And I saw some people talking about how we are seeing how the new generation and new media, if you want to call it that, is having a really, really big effect on this, because they said that they think Kamala Harris she turned down Joe Rogan's, and then Trump did Rogan's podcast, and then Rogan said that he supports Trump. They said that swung things very seriously in Trump's favor. So we're seeing how podcasts and social media and stuff like that has a big effect on people.
That's and regardless of who you I think the campaign wasn't ran the smartest way, where I thought, say what you will about Trump, I thought he was smart with, like you said, going on Joe Rogan, doing these podcasts that we probably don't give a shit about, Nelk Boys and those other type of shows. But he did them because young Americans seem to follow me. These people have millions of viewers for some reason. So I thought he was smart in going on those shows. And I really think Kamala would have benefited from going on Joe Rogan. I mean, you think about a demographic that was not her demographic. What was the worst that could have happened? I really thought she would have been smart going on it. I know that she tried, and there was a back and forth on whether was it ever possible. I don't know. If it was possible, I think it would have been smart if she did go on there.
It almost makes you wonder if her advisors were telling her to put down, rules that he wouldn't do it, so it would look better for her. You know what I mean?
To make it look like it was on him, type of
thing.
Yeah.
And that's listen, I know people don't like Rogan. Especially after he went in and endorsed Trump. His show, part of the magic of his show, we do a podcast, we know something about this, is going into his studio, sitting just him and his producer for 3, and basically you're locked in this room. And once you move the parameters of what that show was, you weren't doing the Joe Rogan experience anymore. Right. So I got why he wasn't going for it. I understand why she maybe didn't feel it was worth it to do that late in the campaign cycle. So I get both sides, but I don't think in my opinion, I thought it would have helped her.
Yeah. Yep. Trump did Rogan. Kamala did Saturday Night Live. that was kind of funny.
It was a good little segment. So
it was funny, but it was the Saturday right before the election, right?
Everybody had their mind made up.
I saw some people say it probably didn't even affect anything, but she gave it a shot, and her little segment was actually pretty funny. So.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, Jared, I'm a map guy too. How about that? The blood is thick. I've always been intrigued by maps forever.
You're the generation. I think we've talked about this. You probably still have physical maps in your car, because I know my dad still does.
I do.
Dude, it was. I don't know. That was my first time watching it. It was. One, can we figure out how to get this all decided at the same time? I don't understand the ins and outs, but I don't understand why we're still not sure officially who won. I don't know. It's what is this? Should we be able to figure it out in a couple hours? That was, I guess, my biggest surprise. First time diving in, watching this stuff. It's you don't even know. It's really nothing's coming out. It's
you're watching a lot of votes to officially count, but they've counted enough to where it's over.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is episode 334 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. For the month of November, we got Veterans Day coming up. All new veteran members will receive special discounts on 3, 6, and 12-month memberships. More info at memorialhealthcare.org and on the socials at Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. Also want to thank our other partners. They include ALS of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook & Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and the Shiawassee County Fair. We'll be back after this break with our Prep Spotlight. We'll be taking a good look at upcoming high school football district championships right after this. All right, guys, it is time for the Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency, local, independent, and trusted. We'll start at our alma mater in D5 district semifinal action. Corunna at home took care of Flint Hamady 35-8. Cavaliers started slow, made some halftime adjustments, and will be making their 5th straight district championship appearance. They had great balance on the ground as Cade Minton had 85 yards. Ruger Zeman finished with 74 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And quarterback Caden Cowdery finished with 67 yards and a TD run. Also, Sully Martin had a touchdown catch, and Dane, the Demon Zeman, led the defense with 9 tackles. The 8-2 Cavaliers take on number 2 Pontiac Notre Dame in a rematch of last year's matchup at the Nick. The Cavaliers won that one 38-17. The Irish last week opened up the playoffs with a 49-19 win over 3-7 Williamston. That's what they finished, 3-7. But Joe Smith
playoffs, get the sweatshirts.
Yep.
Joe Smith came out of the booth.
You get the Ted. You get the playoff sweatshirts, but you don't even want to put your record on there.
No.
Oh, they're repping that around school today. They're repping that.
I was going to say Joe Smith came out of the booth, ran for 107 yards and a couple TDs for Notre Dame.
What's the tail of the tape on this game? What I know you're going to be third booth in it. What do you think?
I think Cavaliers have a shot. You know, obviously, if you look at the matchups on who they've played, the offense scoring stats, and you do have a team with just a hair more points, Notre Dame, than Corunna. If Corunna was 100% healthy, I'd say, you know, they'd have a really, really good chance. But I think Notre Dame, you got to go with a favorite. But Cavaliers, if they show up to play and hit and play like they did in the second half against Hamady, they got a shot.
Yeah, I saw we posted one of a social media account that we follow, Flint Prep Fan. He does a pretty good job with the Flint area football games, but he posted a little graphic of the scoring differential and, you know, a couple things like that. And so one of our listeners commented and said, Corunna can't fall behind early. And that's probably true in any playoff game, but it does seem like maybe, you know, on the road against a heavy favorite in Notre Dame Prep, Corunna don't fall behind 14 or something like that early.
No, it's like that is football in its essence, but it's also like I could see Corunna winning this game. I could see Corunna losing by 5 touchdowns because of what you said. It's important. You got to start strong. You got to get that belief going. I mean, whenever you're an underdog and with high school kids, like your momentum swings on a dime. You got to start well. You got to play confident. So I think that first quarter is going to tell all. I think Corunna's up to the challenge. They have championship pedigree. I mean, a lot of the returning players that played this team already have belief that they can beat them. I mean, I know they've lost some key pieces, but you would think in general, I mean, the majority of that lineup is the same.
Yeah, and like most successful teams, you got to be tough in the trenches, and Corunna's got some good, skilled, talented players on both sides of the line. So I think that's where it's going to be won or loss right there. In other district semifinal action in D6, Ovid Elsie, they pulled probably the upset of the state in the first round last week. They downed Almont, number 1, 44-21. The Marauders trailed 14-7, then rattled off 37 straight. And like I said last week, for OE to pull the upset, Trice Tokar needed a big game. How about a monster game, man? The senior quarterback rushed for 210 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
In the air, he went 15 for 17, just under 200 yards and a touchdown. That's a mind-boggling stat.
Herculean effort. That's what they're going to need from him, to be honest, if they want to have a similar run to what they did last year and win this game. I mean, that's big time. I mean, what a fun district that really was. LCC, Chesaning, OE, Almont, 4 really good squads. Kind of a shame they had to match up in the first couple weeks here.
Absolutely. And you talk about Lansing Catholic, they downed Chesaning in quite a game, 36-29 over at Orissie Morningstar. The Indians' perfect season came to an end to the Cougars. Braden Florian, he did his best to keep CHS in it. He finished with 163 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns to go along with 5 catches and 12 tackles. So, you know, hats off to the Indians, went 9-0 for Matt Walter, but just came up short a little bit against Lansing Catholic.
Tough matchup. I said that last week. Tough matchup, man. They're almost like a college offense. Did I see it right? here's what else is bothering me, man. It's tough to find like a write up of this game. I was
I
trying to
know.
do some of my proper research, but did I read it right that there was 3 pick sixes? LCC had 3 pick sixes. Is that right?
Ooh, I didn't see that in the
Okay, so I
report
don't know if that
read.
was fake news
could
or
be.
what, but I read 3 pick sixes. If that's the case, at
Wow.
least for sure, I saw confirmed. Somebody was posting like score by score updates.
Right.
I saw 2 LCC pick sixes. Did you see that, Matt?
Yeah, because our best fan of the podcast, Craig, he was there posting some updates. I don't know about 3. I know for sure 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Even
so that's
one
a big
is too
swing.
much, man. It's a killer. And if you're OE, you're looking at that score. I think you're looking at LCC and thinking we can win this game. Like there's no reason we should be afraid. I think Chesaning had their worst game of the year.
Yeah.
And it's a tough overall matchup, but a week of film, OE gets to see how they matched up against Chesaning. I think I'd be feeling good if I was an OE fan heading into this game.
Yep. Of course, the Corona game will be on Z92.5, and the Ovid Elsie game will be on WOES 91.3. So look it up online if you're interested in following the Marauders. Also in D8 district semifinal, Fowler, number 1 team in D8, down Reese 48-12. Talk about stat line, fellers. Ford Phillips ran for 175 yards and 5 touchdowns to go along with an 85-yard kickoff return. So 6 touchdowns.
Some of these stats you can't make up, man. It really is unbelievable. That's a hell of a game.
That sure is. Here a little more close locally, Morris in 8-man football down Portland St. Patrick got a little revenge from their only loss on the season. Joel Fisher and Wyatt Cartier both rushed for over 125 yards for Kendall Crockett's crew. Sophomore DB Wyatt Valentine got his school record 9th interception to lead the D. That's pretty impressive right there, man. You know how I like interceptions. It really can turn a game around. I mean, we've been watching that with the Lions, some of their key picks they've had this year. And good job by Morris picking up the W. And do you have anything down in your area, Jared?
I got one. Well, I just got one game that I'm really looking forward to seeing, and that's Belding 9-1 versus Frankenmuth 10-0. That just seems like such a fun clash of 2 different areas. Mid Michigan is what I would consider Frankenmuth, and then the West Side with Belding, 2 kind of historic programs. Belding maybe a little more so than Frankenmuth, but Frankenmuth with Phil Martin as their head coach. I mean, they've made 2 appearances to Ford Field, winning that conference year in year out. I think that's going to be a really fun game. That's the game around 2, in my opinion, in the state.
Yeah.
Well, did the one or no? It was going to be the region Detroit Catholic in Belleville. That was going to be next round.
Yep.
Right?
Next round. Yeah, that'll be one to definitely watch. And I'll end this with, it's sort of sports related. I want to send a big shout out to Corona and Owasso, 17-year-old first cousins. The Trojan senior Emily Eastlick and Cavalier Lexi Golab were recently named homecoming queens at their respective schools. How rare is that? You know, first cousins grew up together. One went to Owasso, one goes to Corona, and they're both homecoming queens. I mean, that just says, what kind of young ladies these are.
Yeah.
Good
I never know where you're going with these stories, man. I always I laugh every time you start one because I'm like, this is going to be good. And it was good. That is a fun little fact.
Thank you. I always try to mix it in. But again, that was the Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency. And we'll get into some college and pro football, maybe a little bit more right after this.
All right, so Michigan, Oregon. I know it's a little bit late news at this point, so we'll spend maybe a little bit more time talking about the upcoming matchups this weekend. But kind of almost, I don't know what you guys thought. I'm like the Nazi Michigan fan. I get negative quick, but to me, it was like they needed some medicine after that Michigan State melee. That was kind of my thought, honestly. I wasn't really upset with the loss. It just kind of felt like maybe they needed a little bit of a reset. Just to kind of pin, I listened back to last week's pod. I felt like I didn't do a really good job explaining why I was upset with the melee. Then we'll move on from that. Obviously, it's really not even a big deal. I'm making a mountain out of a molehill anyway. But so I mentioned last chance to you, Buddy Stevens. So there's this great episode where the last game of the year they play this terrible team, and they blow this team out, and this team is basically just trying to coax them into penalties all game and trying to spark a fight. Because in junior college, if you leave the sideline, you're suspended for 2 games.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, basically a similar thing to what happened in Michigan State. They get in a melee, the sideline clears, and Stevens just goes and rips them for like 10 minutes on this Netflix doc. He can't believe how this is not how he coached them to be. I think he called them like thugs at one point. But basically, so then he goes back and watches the film, and he goes, you know what? As I watched the film, you guys restrained yourself as much as you possibly could. the fight breaks out for 10, 15 seconds. You guys are standing on the sideline until your teammate is literally getting like ganged upon by 6 guys and getting helmets like slammed on them. And you guys finally like ran out to the field. I felt like Michigan, it wasn't even a melee. It was just a couple shoving matches. Now we're clearing the bench. So that was just to tie that bow. I felt like I didn't do a very good job talking. Shocker. Last week explaining. But yeah, I just thought it was a little bit of get your own medicine. Oregon's the best team in the country. Man, Dylan Gabriel's impressive. 300 yards. I know we'll talk about Wink Martindale in this defense. They were without Will Johnson. Probably will be without him all year.
Yeah.
It's what do we want to say about this squad? What more is there to say? Just take your medicine and move on. This is a 500 squad. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been cool for them to pull that upset, but even though they hung with Oregon, but it kind of felt like Lanning and Oregon, they were kind of playing it safe the whole way. Like if they really wanted to put the gas, the pedal to the metal, they could have probably beat Michigan by 24, 30 points. That it just felt that way. But give Michigan credit. They were playing hard. They were fighting. They didn't give up. You see some of these teams, once a team like Oregon goes up 14, 17 points, it just snowballs and it doesn't even matter. Davis Warren had a strong game. I mean, they're making it look like, why didn't we just go with Davis Warren all season and tailor the offense around what he does? Quick passes, easy passes, get the run game going, and maybe they would have a little bit of a better season going. But the defense, I mean, you guys already know my feelings on Wink Martindale. It just seems like a mess. I don't know.
Do you think that he'll move on from him? What do you think? Are we just with this guy?
I don't know, because I'd be surprised if they fire him. I don't know if it's been that bad. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if he's getting back into the NFL, because no one in the NFL wanted him last year. That's how he ended up at Michigan. But the play calling, and we might talk about it a little more, that final play down at the, when they were about to get down and maybe make it an even closer game.
Yeah. A
reverse pass to Samaj Morgan, trying to throw it back to Alex Orji. It was just seriously like, it's one of those situations where, we talk about sometimes coaches just overthink it. Like, what were you doing? Because Davis Warren was having a pretty good game. And,
especially
Alex Orji was actually having a little
magical plays in the red zone. He really did.
Yeah. It was one of those plays, before I ramble on too much, it was one of those plays where it was really like, it made you feel like the offensive staff was like not prepared for that moment. Didn't know what to do. So it was like, pull out a trick play. I don't know. Like, just pull this out. Let's see if it works. And it was like, what are you doing?
I don't hate trick plays. They've done a good job of dialing them up. But,
right.
I mean, we got some stars, some somewhat studs on this offense. Loveland. I mean, Edwards has been playing pretty well, I feel like, the last 3-4 games. I would have rather have seen that trick play in his hands. Let's live and die on him. I mean, because it almost looked like Samaj had a chance to run it at one point, and then just fired it out of bounds. And Orji, oh my God, I felt bad for Orji. Orji
ran into
the camera jib. Oh,
hit it hard.
Maybe concussed. I don't know. That was bad, but yeah, just a blunder of a play with who you ran into, in my opinion. Samaj Morgan's a fine athlete. I don't know if I want 4th and 5, a key play and maybe a season swinging victory, to leave it in his hands. I know Davis Warren's had his issues. He played pretty well, I thought. And like you said, Matt, it's like we took it out of his hands. He played well enough to deserve that chance.
Right.
This wasn't Davis Warren versus Texas, where it's like you couldn't hit water if it fell out of a boat. He was solid, had a couple big-time play-extending plays in the red zone for touchdowns. It just seemed like it wasn't fair to take the ball out of his hands. They didn't need to. He played solid enough.
This loss was not on the players.
Right.
I'm going to break it down even more. It's the whole coaching staff. I mean, you start with the head coach, you got the offensive blunder calls, you got the defense, and then you got crazy challenges. I mean, you don't know a couple of the rules. I mean, I didn't know them. I didn't know that rule about putting the guy over the center, but they're paid to know that, right? Come on.
I didn't understand what exactly. So everybody was like, man, Dan Lanning is a genius. He really pulled a fast one on this. Like, I still don't totally understand what he did. Do you guys understand what was so smart?
Well, right. So they lined up for the punt and they spread everyone out. The only lineman was the center snapping the ball to the punter. So, and the rule is for field goals and punting, you can't line up head on over the center. So, it's a safety rule. So what you basically did, you made the nose tackle for Michigan standing there. He's like, where am I supposed to line up?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to line up?
And he didn't even hit
over the side.
He didn't even hit the guy.
Because you're not supposed to. So he lined up right on the head, which you're not supposed to, and then didn't hit him because he knew that. But so that's where Lanning was like, hey, it's going to go one way or the other. They're either going to line up wrong and we're going to get a first down, which is what happened,
Yep.
or we'll just get the punt off and, you know, no big deal. And that's where, I mean, I saw a bunch of people tweeting like that's coaching. Like you said, Ted, like I mean, do you prepare for every scenario? They maybe never even talked about that in special teams practice, but they should have known at minimum, you can't line up over the center. Like that's a rule. You can't do that. So
that's what made Harbaugh so awesome. Yeah, we know the media clips, but that stuff didn't happen to his squads.
No,
I don't know why it didn't. I mean, we had the trouble with the snap play, but for the most part, he was an ace when it came to special teams. And it's weird enough, but that seems where the coaches really separate themselves. And that's where you find a good coach from a bad one. And I'll let you know, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. It's too early to judge Sharon in my book. I think you need to give him a full offseason, give him a chance to replenish through the transfer portal, through NIL, which I think he'll be able to do. It was not a great offseason for Michigan. There was a lot of distractions. Of a championship is always hard to come back with that same hunger. But in terms of what this season has been, if this was a resume he's putting together on whether he's a good coach or not, it's been an F. This has been bad.
Yeah,
it's been bad. They have some talent, and there's been injuries and stuff along of that but it has not been a great success of a year. Obviously, no surprise me saying that, but for me, you got to give him one more year. Is that where you guys fall as well? Let's see what happens if we're in the same boat next year, 5-5, 5-6. It's time for a new coach.
That seems fair, and I think I'll take it just a little bit further. The guy that doesn't seem to be getting much heat is Ward Manuel, and I know he must have felt pressured. He had to sign, more to the contract, but did he have to? Couldn't he said, "Hey, we're going to give you a 2-year try because you've never done this before,"
right?
But he didn't handle Harbaugh, and I don't think he handled this signing good either. So I think Manuel should be on the hot seat somewhat for his hire.
Should be. Yeah, because I mean, they gave him a deal as if he was like a proven coach and going to be here a long time. And yeah, I think it even though, as fans, it is like he's in over his head, fire him now. It is kind of like you said, Jared, he was kind of up against it, with a short off season, and all that kind of stuff. And it looks right now that he's still recruiting pretty well, especially if they can somehow land Bryce Underwood. Yeah. But yeah, if they get some guys in the portal and they have a good class coming in, it is like, okay, let's see next year where you've had that full off season to train, to, get your strength and conditioning going, recruit, get some portal guys. And if we're back in the same boat next year where we're barely beating Michigan State and we can't, I hope we can hang with Indiana this upcoming Saturday, but if we get boat raced by Indiana and that's happening again next week, it's kind of similar to what people were saying about Michigan State last, a couple weeks ago or whatever, when they got beat by Indiana. Both teams with first year head coaches, Indiana going this way and Michigan State, I think we're all saying we think Smith will be a good coach, but they're barely keeping their head above water right now. And so that kind of makes you see Indiana's a doormat of the Big Ten. I mean, I'm not taking a shot. They've just never been a very good football program. They bring this new head coach in and they're in the college football playoff right now. Yeah. So if Michigan next year is still like can't even beat teams like Indiana, that's where I think it is like, I don't know, Sharon Moore.
And I'm with you, Matt. That's I'm and here's what is a bummer. People think I'm not genuine. I like Jonathan Smith. I like him. I really wanted to be a good coach. I like his demeanor. I like his attitude, his overall coaching style, everything about him I like. But I wasn't joking when I said I saw all I needed to see from that Michigan game. Mm-hmm. If you couldn't beat this Michigan program that's in total disarray right now, when their talent's really at a low point, even though I know they have some NFL talent, if you couldn't beat them that year and you got out-coached in that game, like where arguably if you watch the field, you're like, man, Michigan State looks more talented. Nate Carter was running like a man possessed. Then a week later, you go and play Indiana, who same boat, new coach. Michigan State brought in their 61 guys. Indiana brought in their guys, and they're 40 points better. It's glaring to me. And what we do on this podcast, we jump to conclusions. I think Sharon Moore didn't have quite the same offseason, so you can't put him in that same boat. Like, what did you build? But Jonathan Smith did. He had a full offseason to put his imprints on this program. And to me, it looks concerning. It looks like he's maybe a little in over his head. Again, I'm probably jumping to conclusions. That's if I had to put a point on it right now, yes or no, is he going to succeed? I'd say no.
Well, they got a bye week to try to figure it out for the rest of this season. And Michigan goes down to Bloomington. And, like you said, Matt, they've been a doormat, but there's Hoosier mania going on right now.
Right.
It's going to be quite an atmosphere. 3:30 kickoff. There's two games I'm really looking at this Saturday. That one, and then leading up to Alabama LSU. Doesn't quite have the luster it has in the past, but still will be a lot of fun to watch that night game.
Yeah, and I mean, Michigan has the opportunity. This is what I'm just a dude on a podcast. I'm not the head coach of the football team. I was about to say this is what Sharon Moore should be selling to his team. He knows what he's doing. But you got 3 games, 2 of them against teams in the playoff. You could, if you want to play spoiler, like you said, Hoosier mania right now. They're in the college football playoff. I mean, they're riding high. New head coach. Go in there and beat Indiana and ruin this dream season for them. Handle Northwestern. And then, of course, the last game of the regular season, the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes already have 1 loss. If you can beat Ohio State, that might knock them out of the playoff. I mean, that's what you should be selling to Michigan right now. I saw someone saying people are, Will Johnson, who knows what's going on. He seems like he's hurt. He might be kind of getting ready for the draft. But Kenneth Grant, the dude who, on the D line, who's a first-round draft pick too, in an interview this week, he said, no, you got to go out there and play. So it seems like guys are still wanting to play, but
if
you got 3 big games, you can knock 2 teams out of the playoff. That's something to play for.
Will Johnson come back for the Ohio State game, and that would be great. Come back. I still think Ohio State, as bad as it's been for Michigan, I don't think that's a cakewalk game for Ohio State. Ohio State has had some issues. I know they had a big win against Penn State. They have serious demons to root out in this Michigan rivalry. So all bets are off. Like, I would love it even if these guys sat out for a couple weeks. I know that's not a real storyline, but if they sat out these next 2 weeks, got geared up for Ohio State, I'd sign off on it. Go do that. We need you for Ohio State.
Yeah, one more game to keep. Georgia Ole Miss at 3:30. That'll be a pretty good one too.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
What did you guys make of the rankings? Did you have any big thoughts on it? I know the thing that obviously a lot of people are jumping on, Penn State, which we all hate Penn State. I think we're all in agreement on that with James Franklin. It was hilarious seeing all the post game interactions he was having. Some guy in a 1940s reporter waiting for him at this big victory bell or whatever the hell their tradition is. But they came in at number 6, even though I thought they really had a pretty glaring loss to Ohio State. Even though Indiana, who hasn't been touched by anybody all year, is a few slots lower than them. What do you guys think? Did anything stick out to you?
I think the big thing that I feel like they put people in certain spots in anticipation of things changing. Like, I don't think it's really a true top 12, especially, these first few weeks. It is kind of like, well, we're going to put Indiana here because they do play Michigan, even though Michigan's down, but they'll have their chance to move up. They play Ohio State at the end of the year. So I feel like it's kind of like a half serious ranking. It's just a talking point.
But, I called for it in 1990, as you know. Pretty similar playoff situation.
Oh, right.
Right? I had a 16 team laid out.
Yeah, you have some good takes, and you know what I'm starting to realize, you had a lot of good takes back in the day. You wanted Tiger Stadium to stay. You wanted this playoff, 35 years ago. You need to start digging up some more of these, man. But also with that, where are the negative articles that didn't quite pan out?
But there weren't any. I was always on top of things, man. I still had Viv and Vigor back in those days.
Right.
I knew what I was talking about.
What did Casey say that you had some
spry or something like that?
Spry.
I was spry. That's it. I did have one surprise though. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say BYU. I was a little surprised how high they were.
Yeah.
It's
been fun to see it play out, man. And it's going to be cool. I cannot wait for this playoff. I really can't.
Yep. It's going to be fun.
I've done 2 of BYU's games this year.
Right.
When on ESPN, they're a good team. I mean, they would be a team that I'd be curious to see if they can win out. I think one of our crews has the game this Saturday, 10 o'clock kick, of course. Yeah, but they would be interesting. Look, do they have the talent to match up with Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State? No, but they play really solid football. So that would be one of those where the 12-team playoff is interesting.
Yeah.
Put a BYU against Ohio State. If Boise State can get on with a Heisman Trophy winning running back, see what they can do against Oregon. That's what makes the 12-team playoff fun.
And that's the Genty thing. Ashton Genty, Boise's running back. Everybody's been kind of bummed that he's not really getting the Heisman pub. Maybe he should, but he's going to have a chance to really leave a mark on college football in that playoff game if they make it against a big boy. If he has a big time game, 200 yards. I mean, you're not going to forget who Ashton Genty is. Ashton Genty jerseys are going to be everywhere after that. So one thing I want to say, you mentioned Ward Manuel. One thing I want to say, I think he did get right. Believe it or not, I'm going to bring up college basketball on this podcast. I'm impressed with Dusty May. I am impressed.
He's John Beeline 2.0.
Yeah, this is a home run hire. I'm already saying that. Home run hire. We realized it immediately. Brought in transfers, all 5, starting 5 transfers. They have 2 7-footers. They almost get like this UConn way of winning. Like, you got to have a smart team. You got to have a 7-footer you can run the offense through. Michigan has 2. Danny Wolf from Yale. Wow, I saw this guy's highlight tape from the Cleveland State game. This guy can ball. I'm in on this team. And I loved what Dusty May said post-game. And I've been loving everything he's been doing. He went to the frat houses and was like recruiting guys. Like, it was almost like a campaign video. But he said after the game, like, this stadium is half full, but give us a month. Like, we're gonna make it full. We need you people out here. Like, he gets it. He's recruiting this. You need to recruit kids nowadays to get them to come to watch these games. I'm loving everything I'm seeing. Have you guys had much of a chance to check in? And I'll be honest, I'm gonna be watching their games this year. I'm in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ted.
I was just going to say I haven't really had too much of a chance to tune in, but what I've heard and the way he handles himself at the pressers, I'm impressed. So I'm thinking things are going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, he really does run a system like John Beeline's, and I think I tweeted this out, but I was you guys know I was always a fan and still am of Juwan Howard. Clearly, things fell apart at the end there, but one thing we do know, I think, with this team is they're going to be better prepared. They're going to run an actual offensive system. They're going to be better coached. And, whether they have the talent to, contend in the Big Ten, I guess we'll see, because you do have a bunch of transfers. So, you got to gel and, you got to get some games under your belt. But I think if anything, it's going to be like the John Beeline, tenure. There were obviously the years they made the Final Four, but even in the years they were down a little bit, they were still a competitive team. Maybe they just didn't have the talent to play with Michigan State or whatever. So I think at minimum, I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah. It's going to be fun.
I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm in.
Yeah, he's a good coach.
The May's rage, I'm in.
He's a good coach.
And this Danny Wolf guy, he's going to be a March Madness hero. Just wait. 7-footer, can handle it, can pass. Like, my God, does a mid-major not want to see that in the tournament?
What's the word? We'll give equal time here. What's the word coming out of East Lansing and Izzo's crew this year? They're going to be pretty damn good.
I mean, the things I saw, they were preseason ranked in the Big Ten below Michigan, actually. Wow. But as we know, preseason rankings mean absolutely nothing, especially when it comes to Michigan State, because there's so many times they're ranked top 2 and then they drop 3 or 4 games early on. So, that doesn't mean much, but I think same thing. They had some turnover on their roster. They have some new guys in there, but I think we've watched this play out enough. They're going to be up there at the top of the Big Ten come February, and I think it comes down to can the team come together, because they did lose some big players off last year's team.
Right. Yeah. And for me, it's still just a little early to get into the basketball.
I know, but here's what I realized: it's kind of like baseball, man. When your team, like, I haven't watched a second of it the last 3 years, other than the tournament. Now that Michigan is good and like it, I like the team. They're likable. It's like I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be in. So there might be a little bit more updates to come this year.
Yeah,
I really do think they're going to be good. I could be wrong. I really do think that.
They should be a good team, because the roster construction is good too. No, it'll be those, like when they played Cleveland State. It was that was Monday night, right? Yeah, so it's going to be those random Monday night, Tuesday night games that the last year or two it was maybe like, I don't want to watch that. Right. But now it's on BTN. I'll flip that on and watch,
or at least flip from Monday Night Football.
Right.
And I mean, we got UCLA, USC, Oregon in the Big Ten this year. Should, add a little bit of spice to college basketball. It could need it. It needs it, man. And I hope Michigan State is good.
Yeah.
We love it when they're good. That gives us something to talk about. To me, on the outside looking in, it seems like State fans are maybe a little on edge. Like, just from the last few years at Izzo, maybe not, getting with today's times. We'll see. I don't, again, I'm with you, Matt. It's like, they'll be good come the end of the year. And in the tournament, I'll be thinking they're going to win every damn game on the way to the Final Four. But I don't know. It just seems like kind of a make or break year for them.
Well, they're in the what's the Champions Classic, of course. And they play Kansas, number 1 team in the country. So
is it in Chicago this year or Indy?
That is
Atlanta, I believe.
Atlanta.
Yeah. So I mean, Hunter Dickinson still on Kansas.
Dude, is he really?
Unreal. Unbelievable.
That is funny. I didn't
Seems
know
like
that.
he's like
My God.
26 years old or something.
Oh my. Well, let's go back to football for a minute, guys. Just briefly on the Lions. I mean, big win on the road at Lambeau in the weather, full team victory. That's the game behind us. But the big news was the signing of the defensive end, man. They got some help coming in Zadarius Smith. Didn't have to give up crap. I mean, that's a no-brainer, man. That was a great move by Holmes.
Yep. I mean, Zadarius Smith, so they got him from the Browns. He's been to the Pro Bowl 3 times. They gave up basically 2 draft picks, and they even got a draft pick back. So really, I mean, they essentially gave up nothing for a really good player who's going to come in. You never know how these things go. Coming in midseason, is he going to gel? Is he going to fit in? But you think a pass rusher, it's basically go out there and rush the passer. Like just go do your thing, and we'll figure out the rest. So no, that was a great move. I'm glad they did something. If they would have done nothing, it would have kind of felt like, oh man, this is your window. What are we doing?
Right.
But no, that Packers game, I mean, to go into Lambeau in that weather and just completely dominate Green Bay. I mean, Jordan Love was obviously a little hobbled, but still he's out there playing. So whatever. The defense did still give up a lot of yards. They gave up over 400 yards of offense to the Packers. But, whatever. It was a bend, don't break situation for the defense, creating turnovers like we've seen, pick 6 from Kirby Joseph. The run game got going. Jahmyr Gibbs, with big runs, obviously Monty. Jared Goff, I've said the indoor-outdoor thing before, but he's the MVP of the league right now to me. Jared Goff is just dialed in. Yeah. I mean, I don't the trade is the big news. I don't know what else you can say right now about the Lions. They're playing so well.
The only thing nationally is the Brian Branch ejection. I mean, in the NFL, you just don't see that, and I don't know why you don't see it. Maybe because it is a good rule to have in place, for safety purposes. But there was two or three other plays in the league last Sunday that the player didn't get ejected.
Yeah, I saw somebody, I think maybe it was Campbell, that said that it's like a primetime thing where they almost make examples out of some of these situations happening. But I thought he should have been ejected. I mean, I didn't have necessarily a problem with the rule. I thought it was hilarious seeing him flip off Lambeau on his way out. All-time iconic picture. That was football. Yeah. Everything about that game was football and why we love it. Lambeau is still the best. I mean, there's so many dome stadiums nowadays. I'm glad that one, because of how historic it is, it's always going to be an outdoor venue. It just magical things always seem to happen in those shitty weather games at Lambeau. But I just got to give kudos. I mean, I'm with you, Matt. It's there's nothing negative to say. Just keep enjoying it. Keep watching every week. If you can't DVR it, like I said a few weeks ago. Aaron Glenn, this guy is we give so much credit to Ben Johnson, and rightfully so. He is awesome. But Aaron Glenn, he's the man. The picture that came out of him, just so
his glasses,
you can't hardly see out of it.
Yeah,
he's done an amazing job. And like you said, it's the same recipe every week. Give up a lot of yards, tighten up in the red zone, force a few turnovers. It's been the Aaron Glenn playbook for the last few years. He's done it, and from you hear Brian Branch talking post game a couple weeks ago. He's like, Aaron Glenn is the reason I've made the biggest. He's been the most important coach in my life. And we see it. The defensive backs have been damn good. Kirby Joseph was a liability a few years ago. Now he's leading the league in interceptions. It's amazing.
Right.
Just the whole coaching staff is such an example of how the right culture can really transform players, trajectories of their careers. And we're seeing that with the defensive side of the ball.
Am I living in a dream world? Is there any at all possibility with the right kind of money, because there's no salary cap on coaches, right? Is there any chance, because Dan Campbell is so beloved, that we keep guys like Glenn and Johnson on staff, or is it just automatic they go and take a head coaching job?
I think we got Glenn for one more year, but Ben Johnson, he was just talking last week how he wants to be a play calling head coach. He's okay. Sooner or later he's gone. Maybe you get him one more year. I would at most, I bet you get him one more year.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think a big thing with him is what job is open, what head coaching job is open. Because last year the Panthers job was open and they wanted him, and he was basically like, no, I'm not going to Carolina. I'm not leaving Detroit and Jared Goff to go to Carolina. Right. So, if the right job is open, then
would he go to the Bears? Do you think he would take the Bears job? Let's say let's say the Bears finish 7-10 or 7-9. Eberflus gets fired. Do you think if you were him, would you take that job? You think that's a good job?
Maybe you got a young quarterback in Caleb Williams.
Oh, I think it's a good
coach.
job. I mean, Chicago's a great town. It's a traditional team, I mean, yeah, and wasn't it said that he actually had his eye on
Yeah.
Chicago last year
Yeah.
if they would have offered it to him, right?
Yep.
So why
Yeah, so
not?
I kind of feel the same way. But that's the thing. Like, I think he has said that he would, like you said, Jared, he wants to be a play calling head coach. But sometimes, you got to think like there's value in just being a really high paid coordinator because
Right.
whenever the Lions lose, Dan Campbell's the one in front of the press answering all the questions, So
You can't have a better setup. I think he is smart. I think exactly what you said, Matt. He's going to wait for the perfect job. And why wouldn't you? Wait for that perfect job. You got the best setup you can have. This team is going to be good for 3-4 years. You got a great boss in Dan Campbell. Like, yeah,
Brad Holmes.
ride it until that perfect job opens up.
Yep.
All right. While we're wrapping up the football portion, I want to go back to high school for just a minute, guys. I was talking to your dad at the Corunna game last week, Jared, and he brought up something. He brought up something to me that I hadn't ever really thought about. And after I was digesting it a little bit, I thought, it probably won't happen, but it does make some sense. And let me lay it out for you. So let's say, for example, Team A has the ball at the opponent's 15-yard line, right? And the defense is called for pass interference.
Right.
Half the distance of the goal, right? So
Right.
essentially it's a 7.5-yard penalty. But if an offensive lineman commits a 15-yard foul, they mark 15 yards the other way.
Backwards.
Why the half the distance thing? Why don't you put it at the 1-yard line? Just a question that came up.
No,
and it
I'm
was a
with you.
fair
I
point.
always hated that too. Isn't that an NFL thing though? If you can do the full yardage, you can take it. I think that's an NFL rule.
Yeah, because it happened with the Lions against Green Bay. They were on like the 5-yard line and I think the Packers jumped off sides, and instead of taking the 5 yards to the 1-inch yard line, like you say, Ted,
Yeah,
they got the half the distance. So it was
Right.
kind of like, oh, you only got 2 yards. I mean, that'd be something to think about. I'm sure there's a reason. Yeah, why not just if you get that kind of penalty, then you just get to move to the 1-inch yard line, basically.
yeah.
I'm with you. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
Another thing in high school football, very weird. I'm watching the game and I'm looking, they have 5 referees. And during the whole regular season, they were running 7-man crews. And it all comes down to the MHSAA. They sponsor the tournament. They're only paying for 5 referees. What the hell?
And
you got the most important games of the year and you got 2 less referees. What's up with that?
during the regular season, is it the home team has to pay the refs? Is that how that works?
Yeah, and I think in the case of the Flint Metro League, they have an edict where it's a 7-man crew. So yeah, whoever pays. I don't know if it's the home team pays.
Time and like MH, like this has never been a playoff thing before. This is the first year they're enacting this 5-man.
No, I can't say that. It's the first time I've noticed it. It's probably been enacted all along, but it was kind of interesting to see because I'm looking around, and there's hardly any refs out there.
Also, I will say, man, we talk about shortages. Do we really need? I'm with you, but also, do we really need 7 goddamn referees for Corunna versus I don't know, Chesaning? Like, really? Like, you need 7 eyes on this goddamn thing? But I'm with you. If that is how football is refereed, then do we have a shortage or not? Can we fill these? If we can fill those 7 spots, fill them.
Seems like you could fill them for the playoffs. I think it's a little bit more money in your pocket too.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, I know that the referees, they do make, a decent chunk of change, but it's not paying them an NFL salary.
No.
Referee. So it's like, go ahead and just pay 2 more because you wouldn't want a really big district final game or something to come down to you didn't have a ref in position to make a call.
Exactly. So. Right. And then there's just one other comment about the MHSAA, but it feels like I'm picking on tonight, but
these are your guys. I was gonna say you're on their political party, man. They're gonna be kicking you out pretty soon.
They'll start banning me from extracurriculars. But the playoff point system, I think we've talked about it before. You got to eliminate these regionals. You got to have better seeding if you're going to go by these points. I mean, if you've got Ovid Elsie having to go in a district opener all the way to Almont, and some of these other trips, Corunna, for example, has to go to Pontiac this week. Why can't they seed it? Just divide the state in quarters and then try to seed it that way. I just think it's out of control a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, don't they try to keep it a little regionalized, right? Like
they try, but
they
I
don't
think
have
they're
like
failing.
there's not like a Grand Rapids team driving all the way to Detroit in the districts, right? That kind of thing doesn't happen, but
Right.
yeah, like over at Elsie driving up to Elmont, that's not a short drive.
Here's
So
how you solve it, and we've talked about it. Go from 8 divisions to 6. Now
Okay.
Corona's playing the Chesanings,
Yep.
the OEs, the teams they probably should be playing in the playoffs anyway. That's how you solve it. Otherwise, Corona's going to keep getting pulled in these random directions. It's because we're mid-Michigan. It's going to happen. It
That's
sucks.
true. That's
Or
true.
your
That is
OE,
true.
you're going 2 hours or however far to Elmont. It doesn't make sense, man.
Yeah. Well, take a listen, MHSA. We'll help you out. That's all I can tell you. Let's take a short break here and try to sneak in a little entertainment tonight right after this. All right, guys, a couple things I'll start off with. You know how I like my murder mysteries. I think our listeners, they know I'm the go-to guy about these murder mysteries. But I have to say, Matt, you laid it out, the Lacey Peterson one on Netflix. I finally got a chance to watch that. I know the story very well from 20 years ago, but it was well done. It was really well done. There was new things, new interviews.
Okay.
I thought it was excellent. So 3 thumbs up on that one. I agree with you on that.
Yep.
Another one I want to recommend to you guys and our listeners, if you're into these murder mysteries, you probably have heard of the Zodiac Killer. I mean, there was a movie made with Robert Downey Jr., very famous case, but Netflix has a 3-parter on it's called This Is Zodiac.
Oh, right.
And it was, if you get a chance to watch it, it was spellbinding. I mean, I can't say it any other way.
What a word. What a word.
The police never figured it out to arrest the guy that did it. You watch this thing, it was spellbinding. But you watch this and you know who the Zodiac Killer is, but he never got arrested or convicted. I mean,
I was gonna say, what is the deal? What is the deal with him? Is he caught? Is he not? Is he
no?
So what do you mean he was never convicted but was caught?
They pretty much know who he was, but they didn't have enough evidence to convict him. This was pre DNA stuff, right? And the murders happened between 68 and 72. He used to write coded messages to the newspaper, the San Francisco Chronicle. I mean, it's just, watch this documentary. It'll blow your freaking mind. I'm not kidding you. It's three parts, 3 quick watches.
I need to watch that.
Definitely check it out. It's well worth it.
Because the movie, I don't know if you've seen that movie, Jared, or you too, Ted. The movie's fantastic too. It's one of those where it's like you watch it and there's some twists and turns or whatever that you're like, holy crap, I didn't see that coming. You watch it one time and you almost don't want, like, I haven't watched it now in a long time, so I kind of want to watch it again because you don't want to ruin it or whatever. But no, we'll have to watch that doc. Yeah,
check it out. Those are my 2. I wanted to agree with you and then throw that one out there that I highly recommend it. That's definitely 3 thumbs up.
Well, thanks for agreeing with me. I always appreciate when my recommendations get the Tedtertainment Tonight pass. Sometimes I feel like my recommendations, they get put on the back burner because
you're usually on top of the ones.
I will say I recommended New Girl, and you did give that a try, and you liked that.
That was a clever little show.
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't done Tedtertainment in a few weeks. I brought up, I started the Menendez Brothers show on Netflix.
Right.
There's the drama, I guess that's a dramatization of the whole thing. And I know, Ted, you started it. Did you?
2 episodes in so far.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. It's worth finishing. I mean, you saw the first 2 episodes, it gets better throughout. And that's just a really interesting story anyways. And the actors in that are really good. Jared, I know you're not big into those kind of shows, but have you watched that?
Yeah, well, I've been hearing about it. So I know I haven't watched. I should, because it seems like it's the hot topic everyone's talking about. Is this trial literally going on right now? Is that what's happening?
So no, the original trial ended in the mid-90s, right around the same time as OJ. It's kind of crazy. The OJ trial and the Menendez brothers were around the same time. And there's actually a connection, some of the attorneys and stuff like that. So it's all just kind of crazy. Well, and it was out in Beverly Hills, where the OJ stuff, so there's all those kind of connections. But so no, they've been in, it's not a spoiler alert at this point, but they've been in jail since then. But that's part of the show. And then there's another documentary on Netflix that it's called the Menendez Brothers Tapes or something like that. And it's interviews with the Menendez brothers from jail. and they're talking about it, and the DA out in LA now, or wherever it is wanting to retry the case, because the whole thing is their defense is that they were abused as kids, and it was basically self-defense is their whole case. But back then they didn't see they didn't see child abuse, especially against young
Male.
boys.
Yep.
They didn't really take it that seriously, and that's part of the huge issue and topic and stuff like that. So the DA now, so your question, they are trying to take it back to court so they can get these dudes out of jail, which is kind of crazy. But.
Yeah, in fact, I don't think they're going to try them. I think they're going to release them.
Oh, really?
Well, how many? So what do they got left? Like, are they like 20 years left, or
they were in there for life?
Yeah. Life.
So they really they got their payback on this guy. I would guess.
Just watch episode 1. You'll see the payback on the parents. I'll tell you that much.
So it's okay.
That was some gruesome stuff, wasn't it, Matt?
Yeah, they killed both their parents, and it's the brothers. So yeah. Pretty crazy. But so the show is made by the same people that did the Dahmer show.
Yes.
Some of the episodes, it's not the same director and writer for every episode, but some of them were. So yeah, it's intense. There are some episodes too there. I think I mentioned it before. If you don't like certain topics, about that whole story, there's some episodes that are like, this is kind of a tough watch, but it's an interesting story.
I got just one thing. It's more of a teaser maybe for next week. The NBA. Can we solve it? Let's think on it. Maybe you guys love it. I don't know. It's the season started. It's come and went. The Bronny storyline I followed. Watched him play with Bron opening night. Haven't really tuned in really since. Can we solve it? I'm just going to leave it at that. There's something amiss with the NBA. I don't get it. I just read that the ratings are down again.
Yeah.
We got to figure something out with this league. It's too good of a sport, too good of players. Something, I don't know what it is. That's why I want to think on it for a week, but we got to do something.
Yeah. I think a big thing, we've said it before, they're never going to do it because of the money, but they start too early. Starting the season, same with college basketball, starting the season in the middle of football season, no one cares unless you're a diehard NBA fan. No one cares. Like tonight, the Pistons are here in Charlotte, and I looked it up. I could have got into the stadium to see a professional basketball game for $6.
Oh my God!
And you could have snuck your way down a pretty good seat, probably 10 rows up.
Right. Yeah. We're talking about a Wednesday night, but it's like no one cares about the NBA this early in the season.
Right.
Start it the week of Christmas, maybe start it a few days before Christmas, get a couple games in, and let it go from there. Go all in on Christmas Eve, have a bunch of games and go from there. Because like the in-season tournament last year was the first year they did it. That's coming up. I think it starts like next week. That was kind of a cool thing. It adds a little bit to the regular season, but otherwise, I think people too are getting a little, LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant, they're getting a little superstar fatigue. It's kind of like the same guys, kind of like in the NFL, people are getting sick of Patrick Mahomes winning everything. People are ready for some like new stars to come in and stuff like that in the NBA. And
And I don't know what it is, but like Anthony Edwards is that next guy. I can see that, but like I don't. Maybe it's because I'm not a kid anymore, like I was with LeBron. Yeah. I don't gravitate toward him the same way that I did a LeBron or a Steph.
Yeah,
I don't know why. So again, we'll talk about it more next week. Maybe come up with some ideas. I don't know, but other than that, the only other thing I have is something else to look forward to. November 22nd, Gladiator 2.
Oh,
I can't wait to watch that one. The reviews have been solid. I think. Have you seen negative reviews?
No, that's my personal night. Gladiator is one of my favorite movies ever. I mean,
Russell Crowe was tremendous.
So good. And I was in high school when that came out. We watched that so much. It's been so long. I don't know if it needed a second one. No, this one's probably going to be great too. But that was one of those where it was like, you're done. One movie, perfect. Call it good.
Yeah. So it was perfect. And I probably won't love it just because you're exactly right. It wrapped up so perfectly. And we're doing sequels for everything. Like, you know what one's gonna be terrible? I'll bet my life it's terrible. Happy Gilmore too. It's gonna be terrible.
Yeah,
just gonna be terrible. No other way around it. Gonna be terrible. So
Yep.
I don't think Gladiator is quite that extreme. Like I think they have a good cast and early reviews seem to be positive. So we'll see. But that's a movie you got to see in the theaters, regardless if
Yeah.
it's good or bad. You got to,
for
if you're gonna
sure.
really appreciate it, got to see it in the theater.
I should know this, but is Ridley Scott directing that too?
Yeah.
Like he did the first one?
Yeah, they got Denzel Washington's in it.
Yeah, that
I
just
think
doesn't seem right to me. I don't know.
which is
The Denzel thing seems weird to me that he's in Gladiator.
it's either going to be awesome or it's going to it's going to be like Tom Hanks in that Elvis movie where it's like, what the hell am I watching?
Right.
This is just terrible. It's one of two ways. So we'll see.
I got one other question for you guys. Have either one of you watched the Aaron Hernandez?
I've seen
series?
clips, man. It's kind of comical. I'm kind of intrigued by it. I'm not.
I watched the first episode. It was pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't
The
bad.
clips I've seen seem so like goofy, like the
Yeah.
acting and stuff, but maybe that's the intent. I don't know.
Yeah,
But it was pretty good.
they were dogging on Gronkowski. I haven't got that far yet, but the first episode, they kind of laid the groundwork. Him in high school, there was some gay undertones and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But it was pretty good.
Yeah. Did they?
It
So
really
did they
seems
use?
watchable. It almost seems like kind of comical, like on purpose, almost.
Right.
Like some of the depictions.
The I saw the clips of the guy that plays Belichick. That was
He's all time.
pretty extreme, trying to act like Belichick.
Well,
but-
there's one clip I'm thinking of. I was actually gonna throw it out before you said that, man. It's funny. Like it's one of the clips I've seen. Belichick's like in his office listening to like I don't even know what
Bon
Jovi
Jovi.
song it is.
Is it? Yeah, he's listening to Bon Jovi.
What song was it? Like
It's my life.
yeah, my life. That was kind of a funny scene. So I think that I would watch that show. Like I don't know if hopefully they like it's intentional, like some of the humor in it because it
Right.
is like what Matt said. It's some of the cheesiest stuff you've ever
Well,
seen.
I will say this: maybe it's going to get cheesier because the first episode really wasn't cheesy, and the guy that played Urban Meyer wasn't bad. He wasn't too bad. So
All I've seen is like clips of like him running routes, and it's like the worst
terrible.
route you've ever seen.
Oh, well, I'll update you on it when I watch the whole thing. But I just
deal.
wondered if you'd seen it. All right, let's
let's
call it a podcast, boys. Thanks to the Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center for the month of November. All new veteran members will receive a special discount on 3, 6, and 12-month memberships. Get more info at memorialhealthcare.org and also follow them on the socials at Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. I also want to thank our partners, ALS of Michigan. By the way, I don't know if you saw it on November 12th, ALS of Michigan and Bridging Voice hosting an event to help people with ALS preserve the natural sound of their voice. You've heard these people with ALS and different diseases that have the kind of that robotic thing that when they type out, well, they got a set up now where they can actually use their real voice. So it's just another step where you can help these individuals that have ALS. It's just one step to help them, not towards a cure, but make their life more normal. Also want to thank AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and the Shiawassee County Fair. Our Z92.5 game of the week this week, it'll be Friday, November 8th, Corunna at Pontiac Notre Dame. We'll have the 3-man crew in effect. Casey on the play-by-play, Bartman on the color, and I'll be there causing mayhem. And on WOES 91.3, Ovid Elsie at Lansing Catholic. You can join our sister station and tune into that one. As I always like to say, peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Try to get along. Thanks for listening.